Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And today we are reading the unit again. I'm so sorry that I didn't read 2 days ago and yesterday. It's been really hard trying to keep the discipline up for real because to be honest, it's kind of getting hard for me to like consistently do things now. Okay, so the last one was Inhaling the Breeze, and the next one is chapter 3, A, a World of Walls. So it's page 21 to 33. That's like 12 pages, I think. Yeah. Okay. Here we are. Chapter 3, A World of Walls. When we went back, when we went back home at the end of the sunny summer, darkness filled our apartment during the day. All of the apartment buildings in Alexandria had brick walls in front of them to block bombs and shrapnel. But the walls also prevented the sunlight from coming through the windows, especially in a ground floor apartment. When I was small, Egypt was at war with Israel. US troops were deployed to the Sinai Desert, home of the Suez Canal, to maintain the peace brokered when I was in grade school. It's funny to think about now, but one of my favorite childhood memories is political. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter visited Egypt, and my dad and I watched excitedly as he drove past the convertible car in the co- as he drove past in a convertible Cadillac with President Anwar Sadat. As an as an as bro, what? As anonymous with Islam. As synonymous as with Islam. Mecca, we bro, my brain is not working, man. Okay. Mecca, we face there when we pray. But the people who went to work in Saudi Arabia came home with a different version of Islam. Mubarak created an opening. He allowed all kinds of mosques, so anyone could start one and preach whatever they wanted to preach. The extremists were also allowed to go to Afghanistan to fight against the former Soviet Union, so they came back even more extreme. Many mosques became militarized. We heard on the radio that the young Egyptian men fighting in Afghanistan were killing the infidels, street imams. They read a couple of books and suddenly they re-emerged as spiritual leaders. They said that when the Mujahideen died in Afghanistan, the people around them smelled roses, the sweet smell of heaven. Bullshit. I've been around when the so-called Mujahideen die in Afghanistan, and it smells an awful like somebody just died, just same as anyone else. Wagdi Abd El Hamid Muhammad Ghanim's voice filled my head, not intentionally. His, he was a Salafi Muslim imam from Alexandria, and he preached hatred, recording his messages on cassette tapes. He was he was the background noise in the streets. The tapes were ubiquitous. We heard them being played in cars as they drove past on the street. We heard them on boom boxes. We heard them in our playmates' homes. Let me read you a letter from a fighter. God is protecting the Mahudadin. Mahudjadin. Mahudjadin, bro. Muhahidin. Muhahidin. Mujahidin. Bro, I don't know how to say that, bro. Mujahidin. A Muslim fighter closed his eyes and fired. And he hit a truck filled with Soviet ammo. And it killed all of the Soviet fighters. God is great. I imagine those guys do, in fact, have better luck with their aim than when they close their eyes. 2 weeks after our fighter died, when they went to bury him, his body was intact, and he had a smile on his face. He is a martyr. It sounded as if these guys didn't really die. They just took a nap. Always curious, I listened. If my father found Gohinim's tapes, he f- he threw them in the trash. Don't listen to that. But the government condoned it simply by allowing Gohinem to spew his bullshit. Secretively, the Muslim Brotherhood told young kids like me that art in school was haram. Singing was haram, dancing was haram. They were allowed to quietly make everything haram. Sound familiar? Organizations like Taliban, Al-Shabaab, and ISIS still follow the teachings of the Muslim Brotherhood. It was like a government sanctioned mass brainwashing. But I could never tell if it was because the government was too ignorant to see it or they simply ignore it, ignored it. But how do you, as the government, ignore that these guys say the national anthem is haram? As a 10-year-old kid, we took it all in. Indoctrination. It was funny. We lived it was funny. We lived between the beach and the tram. So I felt as if I could go anywhere. There were movie theaters nearby where you could buy popcorn and see the world in a different way. But there were also a lot of mosques. Alexandria is not the capital, so while it's a large city, there isn't a heavy government influence there. That made it a good place for the Muslim Brotherhood to recruit and be based. Russia eventually deserted Afghanistan, fled in 1989. Russia, the United States, Pakistan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia let Afghanistan collapse. They failed the Afghan people. The Muslim extremists spawned during my childhood in Egypt by the Muslim Brotherhood arrived in Afghanistan in full force, offering food, jobs, medicine, and education. Brainwashing in the guise of religion of hope. In the guise of religion and hope. The government let the genie out of the bottle, and this isn't the Disney version. Dad worried that I had befriended the wrong people, de- developed harmful ideas. He watched me play sports. My dad would walk into my school like he was the most normal thing in the world to interrupt the teacher in the classroom. Hey, he'd say. I'm his father. How's he doing? The teacher would fill him in. Making, I was making good grades and excelling in sports. I was doing just fine. But that wasn't it. Really, he wanted me and everyone else who might try to interfere with what he taught me at home to know that he was paying attention. By the way, he said to the teacher, if he misbehaves, you have permission to spank him. In front of my students, I tried to sink underneath my desk. That even inspired prayer. God, please don't let him come to school again. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher asked me to bring my dad in. I told my dad, and I immediately got the hard stare. The what did you do wrong stare. My teacher would only say that it was something good. Dad went in. She told me I was advanced for my class and she would like me to skip a year and go straight to 6th grade, which is middle school in Egypt. She said I was going to be bored in 5th grade. He's way ahead of them, she told him. My father looked at her and then looked at the rest of the kids in my class. She told him all this in front of me. He pulled her aside and talked to her for a bit, and then he left. But I was in 5th grade, so nobody told me anything. What happened? I asked when I got home. I'm not going to let you skip a year, he said. Why? I asked. I wanted to be in the class ahead of me. You're already the smallest kid in class, he said. In the next class up, you'll be much smaller than the smallest kid. And you'll be the youngest, so no. When I was in high school in Egypt, the government decided that several kids should be military school. Several schools should be military schools. In each district, they picked the best school and it became a military school. They chose my school, of course. We had to wear a uniform, blue pants, blue shirt, navy blue sweater, and black shoes. It had to be black shoes. I didn't have black shoes, and my parents didn't have the money to buy me black shoes, so I wore brown shoes. Every morning, we had formations. If you were out of uniform in the formation, we would be punished. Every day, I showed up in my brown shoes. And every day, the military officer in charge of the formation would come find me in my brown shoes. Every day, he would punish me by making me stand in the position of attention for an hour. Finally, information day, information one day, I said, I'm not wearing brown shoes because I'm disrespectful. I'm wearing brown shoes because I don't own black shoes. The guy felt bad about it, but he told me I had to follow rules, and he kept punishing me. The rules don't change because you're poor. Yes, there are several directions you could go with that. Give the kids with brown shoes black shoes. Change the rules so that brown shoes or black shoes are just as fine, as long as they've been polished. Give the kid with brown shoes a deadline to come up with a pair of black shoes. But the reality is that most people, especially in situations that are authoritarian by nature, aren't that creative. I, was a teenager, had to be. I saw it as a challenge, and I used it to grow stronger. By the time I graduated, I could stand in the position of attention for days, and I could do it without thinking too much about the fairness of being punished for being poor. But even if school felt like a place that had to be navigated to avoid extremists, I remember singing the Egyptian national anthem one day in school. You shouldn't do that. Yeah, you shouldn't do that, the kid said to me. It's haram, forbidden, preparation. I went to Boy Scouts. I eventually became an Eagle Scout at the nearest mosque. That's where I played basketball and other sports. There was a much older guy whom we looked up to, and the kids used to bring three of us to the mosque to talk. 8-year-old kids, they started us young, but Dad watched everything. Dad was always after me. Which mosque are you going to? Who are you going with? Who are you staying between prayer times? You'd think my dad would want us to spend as much time as possible at the mosque. Nope. About 45 minutes separated the last two prayers of the day, the sunset prayer and the evening prayer. So a lot of people stayed at the mosque, but there was nothing to do there. People socialized or went home and watched one of the two television channels. There's no denying the militants were smart. They started us they started using us they started using that time for lectures. Sometimes those lectures were on the you never got time to prepare for the war against the Christian slash Jew slash Shia slash whoever the enemy was that day list. And my dad wasn't having it. If you're going to pray, he said, pray and come back. Don't stay at the mosque. One day he was home when the older guy stopped by the house to walk with me to the mosque. My son is not going anywhere with you. My dad said, no extremists. Eventually, he asked me to stop going to that mosque. I made that sound like a request. My dad wasn't messing around. When we walked together, he would point out the extreme mosques, as well as the mosques where it was safe for me to go. We want you to learn discipline, he told me. You won't eat when it's time to fast. You will give charity to poor people, even if you are the poorest, even if you are poorer than they are. And when you give charity, don't ask what religion the person is. When you're giving charity, it doesn't matter if they're Christian or Muslim. Dad had us memorize a whole verse from the Quran. Goodness does not consist of in turning your face towards east or west. The truly good are those who believe in God and the last day, in the angels, the scripture, and the prophets. Those who give away some of their wealth, however much they cherish it, to their relatives, to orphans, the needy, travelers, and beggars, and to liberate those in debt and and bondage. Those who keep up the prayers and pay the prescribed alms. Those who keep pledges wherever they make them. Those who are steadfast in misfortune, adversity, and times of danger. These are the ones who are true. and it is they who are aware of God. Al Quran, verse 2. Wait, is that right? Chapter 2, verse 178. Wait, I gotta pee. Holy crap. Okay, we are back. Holy. Okay. Dad said it was easy to be a good Muslim. Just be a good human being. And he knew these lessons would have to continue long after he was gone. Even if he didn't understand that his teachings would lead me to fight in the same enemy that he had steered me away from as a child. Aiden Arrow was an insult to everything my father taught. My dad tried to prepare me, to open my mind. He knew that the lessons I learned listening to the radio and talking with people in certain mosques would be hard to defeat. Islam is the only one true religion. Jews are the enemy. There is no reason for any Christian to help a Muslim. Later, I would realize that I had some unlearning to do. That my feelings about Jews and others of any kind weren't as open-minded as my father would have liked. That a friendly neighbor who helped me with my Boy Scout uniform was different in my developing brain from a people as a whole. And that it would take time to truly understand what not my Islam meant. But the lessons did stick. Ultimately, it's rare that there isn't an early memory to correspond with what I did later in my life. What? Oh, okay. Sayings. Memorized verses. Hugs after I've done something well. Even my own anger when I didn't understand something the first time. When I was 14, I started my first job, selling garlic. My dad let me, though he worried that it would interfere with my school, but he made me give half of my earnings to my brother, because families share. It seemed horribly unfair. Picture a skinny kid in a busy market with a pushcart, negotiating the price of garlic with old people. Garlic, get your garlic here. The paycheck? Exactly what you would have expected. You're going to work hard in your life, either at the beginning or at the end, my father said. At the end, you may not have as much energy as you do at the beginning, so you may as well get it in now. It paid off. All four of us have college degrees. By the time I graduated from high school, I was the best athlete in my class, as well as the top student. I was ready for law school, but I had some work to do before I would be ready to live a life that I wouldn't begin to imagine. I was competitive in aggressive ways. And in my mind, I always track it back to that day at the beach when the doctors told my parents that I would fail in life, fail to live. But I went to the beach house because I was curious about the world. That curiosity would lead me to more than 60 countries before my 40th birthday. It would also take me to the most secretive unit in the United States military. And done. Okay, so that is chapter 3. Chapter 3 is pretty good. It just described after basically the events that transpired when he was in school after that summer that he was talking about, and the lessons of life that his dad has taught him when he was younger. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a very interesting part. I would do say so myself because it sets up what his dad tried to stop him from being leaning too far to one side. Let's see though what this would entail for the future, because it really did seem like that his dad was trying to make him the perfect middleman for anything. So either, I don't know, maybe tomorrow. Let's see you tomorrow or next time that I try to read on this. Thank you very much. Bye bye. And this is me, Monday, and I will get a better camera soon, or I'll just wipe my camera because it's so freaking. You see that bloom? It's actually crazy. Bye bye.